All right. Welcome everyone to Sober Sunday. We are glad to be here again as we continue our conversations. We started very crucial conversations last week here at Sober Sunday. It's a place where we have stimulating conversations with me, Simon Bevy, and I'm always having guests that come in who would be able to contribute to the stimulating conversations that we have every Sunday. Last week, we started a series of conversations we hope to finish next week of mom issues. Here on this platform before, we have spent some time to talk about father issues, and we looked at the different kind of fathers and how they affect us negatively, and what positives as well we get from our fathering. But I think the crucial point is that the way we were raised up does determine what we become and some of the struggles we have in adulthood. And so this time we're talking about mothers. And we are saying, yeah, mothers are great. Mothers do a great work. But when mothering relationship doesn't go well, then we carry some gaps. We grow up with some gaps and issues that we need to understand so that we may be able to deal with them so that they don't continue to affect us negatively. So that's the spirit of this conversation. It's not to blame mom, it's just to say no one is perfect, just like the way dads do affect us. Moms also can affect us. If there are certain kind of moms. And last week we began by talking about, but before I go into that, let me actually introduce my guests. I was waiting for one to log in. There's another who's going to be joining us anytime, who was traveling out of town. That is Dr. Movie. As he calls himself, but he's going to be joining us and we'll introduce him as he comes in. But let me start by introducing Dr. Carol Chakua. She's going to be saying a little bit more about herself, but she's a psychologist and a coach as well, and a therapist. So let me ask you to introduce yourself, Carol. We're glad to have you here as you give us your own personal contribution as a mom, but also professionally as a psychologist.
Thank you, Pastor Simon. As always, such an honor and pleasure to be here. So my name is Carol Chakua, and I am a mom, an educator as well as a therapist. And for the last 5 years, I have focused my practice primarily on just helping parents navigate the overwhelm and the emotions that come with parenting, and just begin to ask very candid questions like, what am I bringing into this space? And of course, your childhood, your upbringing is a major part of what you bring into your parenting, into many relationships. But I find that parenting, having children, triggers us more than any other relationship, just because children are so vulnerable, they're so dependent on us. It can be very overwhelming to just look at this life that you are responsible for. And there are many mistakes we make out of lack of knowledge. And so one of the things that I do is really just give parents knowledge, a lot of knowledge, so that they can parent more from a place of self-awareness. And I'm really glad to be here today.
Well, thank you. And we celebrate you, Carol. It's not a mean achievement to be PhD in psychology. So we celebrate you for your achievements and what you've learned. Then we have Sophia Mwendemusioka. That's my good wife and mother to my children. I think she's still sorting out our camera issues, so she's going to say hi to us as soon as she is able to do that. But right now we want to go into it. So again, this conversation is based on a book written by two psychologists. There's Dr. Townsend and Cloud. And they've written an excellent book called The Mom Factor. The Mom Factor. And the first time I read it, I was so blown away by what I discovered there. I began to see some things in me because of the way I was mothered. And I began to fix some and understand myself more. And self-awareness is crucial to our development and our ability to live well. So last week, we talked about the first kind of mom that they get to identify. That is a detached mother. That's a detached mother is a mother who doesn't give what children need, crucially need. That is attachment or connection. Being able to connect the child to connect with the mother. So when the mother is a bit detached, is a little at a distance, then there are resultant problems that come to the child over time because of not being able to connect intimately with mom. So that sets up patterns of relationships and intimacy. But today we're going to go to number 2 and 3. We're trying to move a little bit faster than last week. So the second type of mom, Carol, that these authors write about is what we're calling the fragile or brittle mom. The fragile or brittle, easily broken mom. It's like the china, fine china. You handle with care because it could break anytime. And we're talking about the kind of mothers who get overwhelmed by strong emotions. The negative emotions, they just get overwhelmed by them. Some of them are not able to share those kinds of feelings because either they don't want to burden others, so they keep them to themselves, or when they come out, and they come out in a very eruptive manner, that they get to overwhelm everyone around them. And basically it's because these kind of moms see these negative emotions as destructive. So they're not able to handle them well or even admit that they are having them. So the fragile moms or brittle moms can't deal well with unpleasant or stressful issues. Those become very heavy on them. And they tend to be overwhelmed by the child. So they just feel the child is too much. They just don't know how to handle this. And so they either panic or sadness or fear. It's just too much to handle. Just inability to handle strong emotions. That's what we're talking about when it comes to fragile, brittle moms. Carol, emotions, especially from an African perspective, we don't like to deal with negative emotions, whether it's anger or fear or other things. Many times I think we are socialized to stay away from those. Those are bad, those are bad emotions. So it's very easy for a mother to realize because of the way they were raised, then they're not able to handle those strong emotions, right?
That's correct. And you hear stories, or even you have experiences where a child was beaten, but they are told, do not open your mouth, and you're being beaten and you're told, do not even express, do not cry. Growing up in a space where your feelings are dismissed, and you're told, this is very little. Why are you crying over this? I think we even say that. I am sure I have told my son that at some point. Why are you crying over this? And we just need to understand that whenever we have these issues, doing it once or twice or 3 times doesn't make you a bad parent or a China doll parent or a fragile parent. It's the consistency of it. It's when you do it so many times, so frequently, that it's just really stifles the child's ability to express emotion. So that happens. And I think that we are socialized to gloss over things, let's just all be peaceful. We are socialized to not be too much. So even in the negative, in the positive expression of emotions, also there's times where you're told, oh, just tone yourself down. Don't get out there. You're too much, tone down. But I think the ones that we are most uncomfortable with, that we find are unacceptable, are emotions. So we grow up with the belief systems that emotions are manipulative. So you've had someone say, do not manipulate me with your tears, or do not manipulate me with your tantrums, or emotions are too much. And what we don't understand is that the emotions are so important. God designed them in us so that we are able to figure out what's going on. For you to really just, emotions are roadmaps. They sort of give us an idea of what we need to pay attention, what we need to pay attention to. I feel like I have there's an echo. Okay, I think now we are fine. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree with you. The socialization aspect is very big, and that's what we carry now. We become very uncomfortable when our children are crying. And I've had clients like that, and parents just talk about how distressed they get. For example, a mom gets very distressed when a child is crying and they want to do anything to stop that crying. They go out of their way to do whatever it takes to stop that child from crying.
That's true. And I think what we are seeing here then, when mothers tend then to have this negative view towards these strong emotions or inability to handle them, because anyway, they were not helped to do that in their own growing up. And we're going to very quickly go to the need that needs to be met in the child here, which is containment. But I like what you've said, that emotions are like roadmaps. I always like to say emotions are like the dashboard, what the dashboard is to the car. They show you what's going on, whether you're angry or sad or something else. You get to see what's happening within, about what your thoughts are and what is deeper. But there are kinds of moms that, or kinds of people generally, but here we're talking about moms who don't want to handle those strong emotions. The way they get to handle those emotions is either to withdraw. They just, when they feel sad or angry, they withdraw them. They're not able to talk about it. Or they blame others for their strong emotions, right? So instead of handling their emotions, they may blame others. There's a word called catastrophizing.
Yes.
Catastrophizing. Maybe you can explain that a little bit more, because I think to me as a layperson, it sounds like when you are having these negative emotions, you just cause catastrophe. Around you, everybody is in trouble because mom is angry. But just to explain a little bit of that. Here we're talking about mothers who can't handle these emotions, then what they end up doing. Before now, we see how they don't help their children deal with emotions.
Yeah, catastrophizing, you're right. From the layman's perspective, it's exactly that. Making it an emergency, a disaster. Everything is a disaster. So you are recruiting everyone to panic with you. So let's all panic together. And if no one is panicking, there's something wrong with you. So it's completely, it's a black and white kind of thinking, where if things are not peaceful, then they are extremely bad. And let's all panic, you guys. Let's all get distressed, so everything is catastrophic. You're not able to see the middle ground at all. Everything is a disaster.
Okay. Well, let's bring Sophia in. I think now the camera is working all right. So Sophie, we're talking about fragile, brittle moms, and some of them, I think it's what Bhuvi was saying last week, how the mother would just be so rash and overreact and get to beat up everyone. But maybe before we get into containment now and talk about the result issues, you can tell us a little bit. Did you see a little bit of that brittleness or fragility in your mom, or have you struggled with it yourself? And what did you say about it as an introduction before we get into the details? You are muted, Sophie.
You're muted.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So hi everyone, I'm sorry I had a few technological glitches, but here I am and happy to be on the show today and just have the conversations around motherhood, which of course is a life transforming relationship throughout you. And I tell parents that your mother parents you even from the grave. It's the parental relationship never ends. So yeah, about the fragile mom, I think about it in terms of just what Dr. Carol was saying, that inability to manage your emotions and yeah, I don't know, I don't remember much about my mother, but I do. I actually think my mom was quite calm. Was the calm one growing up. I think my dad was the one who had a few issues right there in terms of just being able to contain his emotions. But how has it acted out in me? I think when overreacting in terms of when something happens, I'll take a typical example, and and I think a lot of mothers would identify with this. Your child breaks, your favorite wedding gift, or something that has a very you have a sentimental attachment to it. And for a moment, you overreact, you give a lecture, you scream, you shout, and for a moment, it almost seems like the thing that you have lost or that's been damaged is more important than the child. And then, yeah, so I think I found as a younger mother, I did find myself in such situations where the world needed to stop so that at that point, I give you the history of the cup and how serious is that loss. And at some point I was like, it's just a cup, man. I also break some myself. So, but yeah, but it can be something behavior that is observed, but also maybe an unbalanced attachment to things as opposed to the child. So yeah, I must say that I'm sure not once, not twice, not even thrice, but uncountable times, I know that I have just blown off the handle in terms of overreacting to a situation, a parental situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying, thank you, Sophie, is that every mom has a fragile moment. And so that doesn't make you a fragile mother. Is when this becomes the issue. Like there's a mother, Dr. Carol, who was telling me once that when the baby just begins to cry or she is afraid or something is happening, she finds herself, regressing and beginning to cry like the baby, and now she doesn't know what to do and begins to behave like the baby, like she doesn't know what to do, so she just regresses and becomes a child herself. Another one was telling me then she's so protective because she's so afraid something is going to happen to the baby that I think by the time we were talking and the child was like 12, the child had never been away for a night from the mother. It was just too frightening, and she just becomes too protective because of her inability to control her own emotions. So that's extended to overprotectiveness. She becomes like a mother hen, always just hovering, helicopter parenting, just hovering over the child because they're so afraid. They can't handle their fear of something bad happening to the child that now they behave in such a way. But let's get down to it and talk about containment. So the need of every child is for their mother to help them contain their emotions. But break that down. What does that mean in English, Dr. Carol?
In simple English, I look at it as acting as a container for your child's emotions.
Yeah.
So you are there to hold space when they are experiencing distress, when they're frustrated, when they're angry, you being able to hold them like the little one who is thrashing with distress, to just hold them, and whether it's just to breathe as you're holding them, or to soothe them, or to sing, or just hold them until they're all soothed. That's for the really young one. For the toddler, the toddler who is throwing a gigantic tantrum, to be able to really just help them calm down, because, just coming from that understanding. And one of the things that I am really passionate about telling parents is what is really going on with a child when they're misbehaving, in quotes. So when a 2-year-old is throwing a tantrum, the part of the brain that sees danger, and that is the fight or flight one, is the one that has been triggered at that time. And for them, whatever is going on, it's a dangerous situation. And so let's scream, let's roll around, let's it's danger, you guys,
Yeah,
And so at that point, where many parents, we think they're just trying to manipulate us, but the part of the brain that is in charge of talking and naming their feelings, that one has been cut off completely. It's gone offline. And the one that's alive and active is the animal reptilian brain that is very, that is just looking for safety at that time. Should we fly? Should we fight? That's where they bite, they tear things around. And so it's important in terms of containment to be able to provide a safe space for that child, for that highly emotionally charged moment to dissipate, to start going down. That is not the time to chapper them to keep quiet, because when you chapper them, they will keep quiet, but they will keep quiet because of the pain. And so the lesson you're teaching them there is that your emotions don't count. Your feelings don't count. And that's when now you end up having the fragile mom at the end of the day, because they don't know what to do with their emotions. It's just a very agitating space. So containment for a 2-year-old means still just maybe holding them or removing them and putting them in a calm place and sitting there next to them while it goes on. I think we just are so afraid of doing that, because we have been told if you do that, you're teaching them it's okay to misbehave. But at that moment, it's not about the behavior, it's about the physiology of it that needs to be calmed down. And actually, the more you do that, the more they learn to regulate themselves. So when they are dysregulated, there's a quote I see a lot with a lot of positive parenting psychologists, and they say, when a child is overwhelmed by emotions, it's our job as adults to not to join their chaos, but to bring them our calm. So you being calm in that moment when they are chaotic really makes a difference, and it regulates, tells them it's okay to do this. And then later you go back. Definitely there's a reason why they went into the tantrum. They could have been tired, hungry, all that. Then the other thing for containment, another thing, so apart from just being calm beside them or soothing them, is also teaching them how to speak out their feelings, to just name it. And we say when we name our feelings, we tame them. Okay, so when we don't know what's going on, it overwhelms us. But it's our job to actually begin to give our children emotional vocabulary, and say, you're feeling frustrated right now. I know it's really frustrating when you have to stop playing and go home and you are having so much fun. You're validating, you're giving them emotional vocabulary, but you're also validating that being told to stop playing when you are having so much fun, that is stressful, that is frustrating. I know it's frustrating, but saying that doesn't mean that I'm going to let you continue playing. Okay, I tell you, I know it's frustrating to have to leave your best friend right now, but it's time to go home, so we are going to go home. Okay, so they might throw the tantrum still, but you are validating, you're giving them emotional vocabulary there. So there's so many different ways we can provide that at different ages. So do we have time for the other ages? Or do you want to jump in?
Well, we're going to come back, but I think you're bringing out a few important things that I think we train mothers. I know you train and we train in this course of mom factor, ways of containment. So you've talked about structuring, being able to name the feeling and then put it in context of what is happening in the big picture so that they understand, and then how to take some action to control that. Like when they're in the supermarket and they throw a tantrum and they're rolling, and you've got to say, okay, right now you're angry. And that's okay. But when you're angry and we're in the supermarket, because I can't buy you this because I don't have the money for that, I have money for this. So you're helping them to structure the understand, giving them a structure to handle their feelings, and then tell them, but you don't have to roll on the ground. What you're doing is not going to save the situation. So what you do is you stand up, we finish shopping, and we go home and talk about it. So you're structuring for them. Then you've talked about validating, where you don't minimize and say, what's wrong with you? Why would you feel that? No, you're saying, I know actually you're sad or you're angry or something like that. But then there are a few other ways of containment, like soothing, confronting, helping them to think through them. And maybe Sophie can mention something on that before now we go to, okay, brittle moms, how do they affect us? What are the resultant problems? But Sophie, you can mention something on soothing and how that helps a mother just soothing the child and helping them, especially when they're infants and into toddler. I guess confronting and helping them think through them comes a little later, Doctor, where you were saying a little later how to help them. But Sophie, you can mention something around that before we move on to this brittle mom. Yeah.
I think soothing is very, and thanks, Dr. Carol, for those remarks, quite insightful. I really would say that soothing is like when a child is coming to you and they're stretching their arms and they're needing to they're needing to be touched, or just to be touched, to be soothed. I think it's okay. It's pretty okay, to soothe that child, hug them if they need to be hugged, wipe their tears, listen to them, because like Carol says, there are things that from an adult's perspective, we are wondering, but what's wrong? But we forget that this child is not at the level that we are at. They don't know that it's actually okay, that this is a temporary situation. I mean, it's a new thing for them. And I think one of the things that we say, the definition of childhood is that it's immaturity. It's a synonym for immaturity. It's a synonym for limited exposure. It's a synonym for incompetence. And so a child is incompetent even in the area of handling their own emotions, even knowing what is wrong. And I know we make this this thing about when a child is sleepy and they start crying, and you're like, why don't you just sleep? I mean, why are you crying? You're wondering, you're feeling sleepy, close your eyes and sleep. but the child starts crying, but it has to do with their lack of competence in terms of just developmental, cognitive, knowing that if I'm sleepy, hey, as adults, if you're sleepy, what do? You pick yourself up and go to bed, because you've matured in terms of your logical linking your feelings to your to the logical side of linking your feelings to your thinking. So I think just our role as parents, of course, is to we have gone ahead. We know that it's okay, and it's okay for us. Soothing means that I come down to the level of the child and try to figure out what do they need from me at this point as a parent. If it is soothing, soothe them. If it is confronting, confront them. it is okay for you, for a parent to say no. And when you're doing parenting and we are saying, no, Johnny, you can't do this, mommy says no, that is confronting behavior that is not acceptable. And sometimes we feel that, it's just a child, we excuse them, we allow them to, to get away with the murder. We don't confront. And I think it's okay for us to be at the level that a child can handle. You can help them with the thinking process so that you link, behavior to consequence. You're helping the child there. But I say that if you're a fragile mom, then you may not even, you may have your own unresolved issues, so you're not able to resolve the same for your child. Yeah.
Okay. All right, now we have to move on because of time. So we're talking about, especially teenagers, where you confront them and tell them that's not how you handle the out of control feelings. If you're sad, you don't bang the door. Who is going to repair it? If you bang the door again, I'm going to remove it, and then you will sleep without a door. That's help. That's confronting. I'm saying that because I think I've had that kind of conversation before. So you can't bang the door if you're angry. Yeah, you're angry. This is what you do. This is out of control. The problem is not the door. The problem is what is inside there. And there's different ways of handling them. So thank you, all of you have joined in. Please, we are talking deep things here, and I see some of you are contributing. Joyce Kirui, you're saying motherhood thing. It's challenging but fulfilling at the same time. Masigaki is saying living in emergency mode. That sounds like fragile or brittle mothering. When home is like an ambulance. That's a good picture. Consolata says, for me, I couldn't carry my baby on my back thinking that something can happen to her. Just so afraid that you don't want to do some things. And in case you had a brittle mom, please let us know just your experience with the brittle mom as you grew up, or the fragile mom. So let's say now we have this kind of a mom who can't contain their own feelings, so they can't help the child contain their own emotions. And through those things we have said, soothing, validating, structuring, confronting, helping them think through them and others. What are the relational, functional problems that you are likely to have as you grow up because of having a fragile mother, Dr. Carol?
Number one, when you have children, you pass that down, the catastrophizing. I like whoever has said the emergency, it's like you are always on emergency mode. Definitely because you were not allowed to cry, or if you cried, it was dismissed, then you have that belief that emotions are uncomfortable and they should not be expressed. And so when your child expresses that emotion, it becomes a trigger. And so the trigger here it triggers feelings of inadequacy. It triggers feelings of I'm failing, I'm a bad mother, I am not good enough. So you pass it down to your children. So it's again, the cycles that we have just talked about. You are unable to also control your own emotions. You're so uncomfortable with big feelings that you cannot support. You cannot support your children. So for me, in the parenting space, it plays out exactly how how it was passed down to you. However, on the other hand, you can go to the other extreme and become the helicopter mom, like you were saying earlier, and want, or the lawnmower parent. The lawnmower is the one who clears all the obstacles in the child's way so that they don't have to experience any issues, because emotions just make you uncomfortable. So definitely in your parenting, you will replicate. It will just be a mirror of what it is that you went through.
That's right. And some could be very aggressive because just aggressively critical, because they don't just understand. So they become aggressive to attack these emotions because they don't know how to deal with them. And they end up being then harsh mothers in that way, or maybe withdrawing. But Sophie, some functional problems as well that come because of not having a mother who taught you how to handle emotions earlier on.
Okay, I think just from the conversation, you understand then that you tend to become very rigid in your thinking because there is, if you're so agitated yourself that you don't have time to actually calm down and say, okay, what is it we're dealing with here? How differently could I handle it? How do I help my child? How do I? So I think there is a lot of rigidity, and fear really becomes very debilitating. I mean, you just can't function, or you don't want to risk. You're risk averse, so very rigid in your thinking, always playing safe, and not wanting to step out of the what you feel is your comfort zone. So there can be limitations in that way, and also, I mean, if you're not willing then to step out of your comfort zone, I mean, it then will extend to every aspect of your life, whether it is problem solving, whether it is decision making. Then you will be indecisive, and you can imagine being in a career where you need to grow. And how do you grow in a career? You grow by being willing to learn, being willing to accept new things. So it can actually just hinder growth. It can hinder in every way that matters, whether it is social development, whether it is emotional. You also don't grow emotionally. You become an emotional dwarf, if I can talk about it that way. And social, I think, is relationally, and of course then it limits every aspect of your life. And unfortunately, like Carol says, you pass that on. It becomes how your family deals, because that's then what they're picking from you as a mom.
And I guess, Carol, you're also likely to have career snags, because if you can't deal with strong emotions, then you're going to blow up in the office and call your boss names or other teammates. So you just become like someone people walk on eggshells around in the office. Because when you blow up, everyone is scared. And I think once we've been treated to bosses like that, bosses that you can't tell them the truth, you begin hiding the truth from them, because if you tell them the truth, it's going to be a catastrophe everywhere. Nobody is going to be able to work. Things are going to fly. So a lot of that is the inability to contain their emotions, that they were not mothered in that way. And I guess this is very mother-oriented. Very few dads can help us in this area, because men catch up with their feelings a lot later. But mothers are the ones meant pretty, because of the mental structuring, your mind structuring, is that you can actually be at the same time in a situation thinking through it, but you're also feeling. And you just have strong ability to work from both hemispheres. And that helps in trying to help the children deal with that. But emotionally, Carol, what are some of the resultant problems that you may find yourself having if you had a brittle or fragile mother?
Either extremes, reactive or just dead and blah. You cover your feelings. You are so detached, and even what we were talking about, the detached mom last week, and now this kind of mom. Unfortunately, people don't fall in those categories strictly. So you will have tendencies of detachment even here, because you are not allowed to be in touch with your feelings. So there's that extreme of just being detached, being very, and the word that people are now using a lot is narcissistic. Not
very self-centered.
Yes, very self-centered. Not really just empathy, having any level of any shred of empathy. Like, how does it feel to be in this other person's shoes? Although I think that this word narcissist, for me, I think it's been overused, but that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, so we get there. We become very, very detached, very dead to other people's feelings. And on the other hand, then you also become very reactive. The brittle mom is the anxious mom, okay? Very, very highly anxious. They're the ones who project when they see a misbehavior now, and I think we've talked about this in other fora, that you see a misbehavior now, and for you, when you see that your 6-year-old lied that they didn't eat the cookie, and yet they ate it and you can see the crumbs, for you, you don't see someone just trying to stay out of trouble. You're seeing a 25-year-old man in jail. And so that becomes such a trigger, and we become so anxious that my 6-year-old will end up in jail in another 10, 20 years, that what you do in that moment is to fix that behavior, to make sure that this never happens. So that's actually also part of catastrophizing, because one mistake, you blow it out of proportion. And so that's where you yell, or you thoroughly beat that child. And as you're beating them, you also, after that, you're giving them another 2-hour lecture. Okay, so it's just dumping your anxiety over the child. So there are those two extremes will still happen, even with the brittle mom.
Okay, wow. I guess then just some of the things we mentioned last week, when you've grown up with a mom who hasn't helped you to understand containment of feelings, you might end up in depression, or being one who's so withdrawn because you don't know how to deal, or you might end up in some compulsive addictive behavior as a way of trying to deal with all what is welling up within. You don't know how to deal with it. So instead of shouting and beating up everyone and breaking things in the house, you go drink. So you can easily end up in compulsive addictive behavior because you're trying to deal with so much that is within. Sophie, they say when you have a fragile mom, then you walk around them, especially when they're old. You don't want to tell them the truth about many things. So it's like you're hiding bad news from them, or certain news from them, because you just don't know how they may react. They may just drop dead, or cause a scene or something. But it just becomes very hard to deal with them, right?
Yeah, true. I actually know people who make some very serious life changing, serious decisions, and their mother will be the last person to know, because they're like, you know what, I can't deal with the drama of my mom doing this thing. I will never hear the end of it. So you tend to withhold, to really like filter. The relationship has to be filtered a lot, because you're thinking, what will happen? What are the consequences? Yeah, and also compliance, where the person your mother knows is one person, and what other people know out there is something very different. And I actually remember this, playing out a little bit, like I say, I think as I think about it, I see ways in which maybe my own mom also was a bit fragile. And I say that every mother has their own fragile mother moments. But I remember in our home, we grew up in a very strict home, and we couldn't wear things like trousers. They didn't make the cut. I remember now, when I got married, I really, when it was time to go home, I really had to think about, what will I wear that will not cause drama back at home. And remember, I'm married, I'm out of the home, but I'm like, hey, I don't want drama, man. I don't want anything to get in the way of this visit. So I think it can also then get to the point where you're not real with your mother. You put up a face. You have a script for her, depending on what you think she can manage. And so it's an unfortunate thing, because then it robs you of a real and a genuine relationship with your mother. And
Yeah.
and I think it's one of the saddest thing that can happen, because your mother is supposed to be one of the closest human beings in your life. If she can't share in your life, then I think it's a big loss. It's a big loss, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
a huge relational loss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And there are some people who fight with their moms. When they cause that drama, then you also become dramatic and you just fight, attack each other and go. And you're not feeling very bad, but you're just feeling, I don't know how to handle mom. If I do something, this is how she reacts and she's embarrassing me. So I know some of you might be in such situations. Please let us know. As we finalize on this and we have to go to the controlling mom, I don't think we're going to finish, but we're going to start off anyway, because I think when we used to do these trainings, we realized that controlling mom is probably the one who is experienced a lot more than all the others. But Dr. Carol, if now you realize, okay, I'm a mother or I'm a man, and I grew up with a fragile mom, so I didn't learn this containment thing. How do you help yourself?
As always, we start with acknowledgement that this is what actually happened. And it's always, I mean, we'll keep repeating this, that it's important that we actually acknowledge specific things that were done, not just generalize. Okay, and just say there's this event and this happened. You may not remember everything, but just being able to connect with the things that happen makes such a big difference, because it helps you sort of do what we call a narrative. It gives a coherent narrative, and so that you it's not just scattered. The good, there's a little bit of the good. I'm not really sure if it happened. So allow yourself to go back there and acknowledge what happened. And I think the next thing then is to find out, do I actually need support in terms of therapy, or just a support group, for example, to just be able to speak it out? Because sometimes it's just all you need is to speak something out, and it begins the process of healing. There's space to begin to learn to have an emotional vocabulary yourself, to teach yourself how to have an emotional vocabulary beyond just I am angry, sad, joyful, happy. You know, we have those only 5 basic ones, but there's so much more that gets into that we can use to be able to be in touch with our emotions. So we teach ourselves the emotional intelligence. Learning to be kind to ourselves is very important, you know, because it's part of healing. What it is that you didn't get, what it is that you are not allowed to have, you give it to yourself. You allow yourself to sit. One of the things with fragile parenting, fragile moms, is you are not allowed to sit with your emotions. So actually, one of the things that I guide parents to do is to sit and be comfortable with feelings of anger. Just sit with it and understand it. Sit with frustration. Don't rush too quickly. You know, when you say we rush into addictions and things like that to try and fix, how can you just learn to be sit and to be still in that moment of discomfort? You will learn so much about yourself when you learn to sit in uncomfortable emotions. We don't know how to do that. We quickly run into other things. And that is something you need support to do more often than not, through therapy or a support group, or being with people, or a coach, you know, who can help you in that process, help you get those tools.
That's right. And I think what we said is really important, is like we are reparented, you know, in adult relationships. As you relate with other people, they're able to tell you, hey, the way you're handling that anger of yours is not good. You know, you need people around you who can help you deal and say, no, you don't need to shout. In a sense, they're remothering you. They're mothering you. They're filling in the gaps. So it's always good to work with whether if you're a man, make sure you have male friends that you can be vulnerable with, and they can tell you and you know, talk to you and be very, you know, honest with you. And as well, if you're a lady, you have your lady friends that you work with. Well, that's about the fragile mom. And if you find yourself as a fragile mom, then there's a way that you need to fill in those gaps through some of the things that we are saying. Also, learning empathy, putting yourself in the shoes of others and empathizing with others. But once you understand what's wrong, then you begin to handle it. And all of us, as men as well, if we begin to realize we are brittle in a sense, or fragile because of the way we were brought up as well, we can also deal with it and grow up, into self-regulation when it comes to emotions. I think we're going to go into controlling mothers. Controlling mothers. So we have said about the fragile, brittle mom, the need that a child has from the mother is mom to teach me how to contain my feelings. When mom doesn't do that, then I have problems in the future because I don't know how to deal with my emotions. Mothers have a special ability wired in them to help us in containment. Now let's go to controlling. And talk about what it means to be a controlling mom. Again, when we did these trainings, a lot of the mothers that we talked to, they said, I think it was like half of them, they say, I think I tend more towards being controlling. And some would say fragile and the others, but controlling was a big one. And I think the need that a child has here from the mother is to foster separateness. As a child begins to grow, then they begin to become their own person, and they need slowly. I think, Dr. Carol, we have said before, mothering is a relationship where you begin separation right from the moment you become a mother. You know, birthing itself is a separation, and then you need several other separations happening to allow the child to be. But controlling is when you don't want that to happen. So you control, you're in control of the child. You don't want to allow that separateness to happen. But you could say a little bit more on it, Dr. Carol, and then Sophie is going to begin to lead us into some of the problems that come when you have a controlling mother.
Yes, I think controlling comes from a place of high levels of insecurity, because that refusing to let go and to separate means I'm feeling so insecure. I don't know if this light it's flickering. I don't know if I should switch it off. Is it okay?
Yeah, maybe you could do that. Yeah.
It's okay. I hope this works. Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, that's better. It started again. So let's so could you just give me a minute? I pull it out.
Oh, okay. You could go ahead and do that. So separateness, maybe as you go on, is also to explain separateness and how that is important for a child. As a child begins to control, they need to have their own will, be allowed to grow into their own emotions, understand their own uniqueness, so that they are not all lost in their mom. But go ahead.
Yes, so it plays out in the need to this child belongs to me. I'm the one who brought them into this earth. So I am fully, entirely responsible for them. And so it comes from a place of anxiety and not wanting to let go, because if you let go, you do not know what will happen out there. And so you control. Where it's really coming from also, it's from your own personal insecurities. You feel anxious when you don't see the bigger picture. And therefore you want to fix your child. I call them carpenter parents, where you want to fix, to plan, to make sure that you already have a picture of how they're supposed to, how it's supposed to go. And so a controlling mom, of course, will smother them, will be very smothering. They don't want to see their children getting hurt. And so they overprotect them, and they insulate them so much. They make sure that they're deto moms, Is it deto moms the opposite, or?
Yeah. The deto moms is the one that allows them to
let
fall.
them go, yeah. So it's the opposite, the opposite of the deto mom. Yes.
Yeah. And I think separateness is very important. Separateness is very important because then you are allowed to have your own individual identity and differences. And it's like being taught how to have your own self-control, so that mom is not doing everything for you. I think it's very easy for mom to take over your life, and you're 9 years old and mom is still deciding what you wear, what color of dress and everything. They're just in charge. They don't want you to own your own actions. They want to own them. I think when we were talking about this, one of the moms admitted, I think I'm so controlling. I can't allow my child to be. And I think she said, my son is 12, 13 years old and still sleeps with me. I can't think of him sleeping in another room, because what's going to happen? How is he going in case something happens at night or he needs to go to the bathroom? What is he going to do? It's like you've taken full responsibility over your child. You never want them to grow up, in a sense. And in your eyes, they have never grown up. So you frustrate their independence, their ability to grow and be their own person. Then, of course, you can never affirm their strengths and all of that. So they're enemies. Mothers like this become enemies to separateness. They don't want this separation to happen. And one of it is just guilt. And then, Sophie, you just begin to tell us about the resultant problems. But one of it is guilt. And I'm saying this because I've had mothers admit to this, that I make my child guilty when they don't want to. Can you come and be with me? No, mom, I want to go. And then you begin to tell them, but I brought you into this world, but I'm your mother. It's like you're manipulating them to be around you and not to be themselves and not to make their own decisions. Or you're withdrawing, threatening them. Then if you don't do this, then I'll not even do this for you. It's like you're withdrawing love because they don't want to be there with you. They want to be separate from you. Or you attack them with anger because they didn't want to go somewhere with you. You tell them, can we go somewhere? And they're preteens and they say, Mom, I don't want to go. And you begin to attack them. Why can't you? How can you not take your mom where she wants to go? So at that point, you just feel like threatened for your child being their own person. And so these are the controlling moms. They just want to be in charge of everything. And they want you to be around them. And they become, is it the sun that all the other planets orbit around? Yeah, so they want to be the sun, and then you orbit around them and never far away from them. So when you have a controlling mom, and I think this is easy to understand, that's why we're rushing through it in terms of definition. I think many of us, it's easy to say my mom was or is controlling, or I am controlling. What are the problems that begin to happen, Sophia, when you have a controlling mother?
All right. I would also, as Dr. Carol was talking, I was thinking of this is the kind of parent that will overparent. You overparent the child, so I think every parent wants everybody has a picture of every parent has a picture of their child growing up, becoming successful adults. But when you overparent a child, you actually undermine that dream. When you're a controlling person, you undermine that dream, because then you're not allowing the child to moments of separation or seasons of separation, so that then they can know how to survive in their world out there. And I think the resultant problems is that you raise children that are not confident. They are always second guessing themselves because they have not they're not given the opportunity to learn, to make mistakes and learn from them. Mom is always making the decisions, has planned everything. And I think this the kind of mom who even wants to control the environment, so that then maybe the house has two houses, one for cleaning and the one for watching of the child. And it is such a sanitized environment or highly controlled environment that there is no room for failing. There's no room for learning. And yet we know that failure is one of those things that teaches us lessons. Even in simple things like walking, a child will start walking, take the first 2 steps, go down on their behinds, and then wake up and move on. And then another day they wake up, and then suddenly they will walk without falling. So we need not, disallow our children from failing, from making mistakes. We don't have to rescue them, because the controlling mom will also rescue the child because they want the perfect environment. They think that they're doing it for the child, but it's actually playing out, like Dr. Kara said, their own personal insecurities. So relationally, you raise a child, like I say, who is not self-confident, because self-confidence comes as we make decisions and we succeed at them, or you make, you fail, and then you learn a lesson. So this child will not also be, a child will also be highly manipulated, because that's the pattern. They are prone to become the kind of people that can be taken advantage of easily, because they're naive. They've never had to make any decisions. They've not been allowed to see the relationship between decisions and consequences. So it's actually one of the worst things that can happen to someone. And by the way, even as, like I said, there is no mom who intentionally wakes up and says, I'm going to harm my child. I'm going to make my child incompetent to deal with adulthood. I guess we all parent, in a sense, out of brokenness, and it's one of those things that really happens to us. Child just cannot survive, cannot be independent, cannot be confident, does not have what it takes to actually become an individual, because then mom is all over my life.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, you find these grown-up children are irresponsible because they transfer ownership. Mom did everything for them. So it's like whenever they fall into problem, it's about mom. This is codependency issue with mom that happens, Dr. Kara. You mentioned about it as we come towards a close. But I think when a child has grown up with a controlling mother, you find it very hard to live on your own. I think there's this one mother, when we were talking about this, I think it was out of town in Meru or somewhere. And this mom said, I think my mom is so controlling. 15 years into my marriage, she still calls me to say, have you made breakfast for your husband? What did you make? And how did you serve it? And she had to say, no, I have to stop mom now. Mom cannot be doing this. I have my own family. She still wants to control my family many years. And I think that mom said, and mom has to come every month just to check how I'm doing, come to my house, stay for 1 week, check whether the bathrooms are clean, just too much. It's like they want to be, and this is how also, I think we talk a lot as men about mama's boys. And I think this is how they result, because I think I remember mama's boy was brought into my office by the husband, and then by the wife. And the wife said, I don't know how to deal with this man, because every time we make a decision about what to do with the house, we need to repair that side. He calls the mom to say, Mom, we want to do this. What do you think? And if the mom said, I don't like it, then it doesn't happen. So it's like you never gave a chance for this person to grow up. And so when they are grown up, they don't know how to behave as grown-ups. So we throw this word codependency a lot, Carol. What is that? Just explain it in English, because we like to say you become codependent with mom or with other people because of this.
And I think you have laid it out very clearly. I cannot make a decision until this other person is fully on board. It's like there's a voice that is missing, And until that voice speaks and gives me assurance or approves and gives me the tick, then I cannot move on. And it's just really a place of helplessness. And it's like both of them depend on each other. Sometimes codependent relationships are not just in making decisions. They are in form of rescuing. For example, codependence plays out very well in addiction. Someone who is an alcoholic, they clear their money, and then the mom comes in and rescues them. So the mom will complain to other people, I've spent so much money, oh, they've come and cleared my account and everything, but that's the only way they feel needed. And so it's a very unhealthy cycle there, that codependent relationship. It's very unhealthy because you are actually enabling you become the enabler of that.
The sponsor.
Yes, the sponsor for that. So you depend on each other for bad habits. Yeah, that's how it plays out.
Okay, well, unfortunately we have to begin to close, but maybe next week, as we summarize the other three, and we're probably going, all of you are listening and want to know more about this, we're probably going to plan a mom factor seminar and include you, Dr. Caro, as well, so that we do this a little bit more, give you notes, help you analyze yourself and know what to do, because we're really doing a disservice to these conversations. We're just summarizing what we should have talked about in several hours. But the skill that one needs if you have a controlling mother or you had a controlling mother is to become your own person, to grow up, to begin to get a life and create your own identity, identify your own gifts and talents. You might begin to be yourself, become your own person. But what are some of the ways that you can be helped, to become your own person? Just each of you can say something before we close. Some ways that you can help yourself if you have grown up in this very controlling environment. Or help yourself if you are a controlling mother.
I think everything begins with A. Acknowledge.
Exactly.
Acknowledge. And as I was thinking about just listening to Simon and to you, Carol, is that I think really for us to be productive adults and to keep growing, we really then must be very reflective individuals. And I think there is no other journey than the parenting journey that causes you to reflect, because sometimes you see yourself in another generation and not just the good parts, the bad parts. There's a time when I had myself, shouting, yelling through my child. And I was like, oh my goodness, this thing is actually becoming cross-generational. So even the not so good things in our lives can pass on, because habits are caught, and they're caught when we are around our children. So I think just reflection, because even having these conversations, there are things that as I listen and as I reflect on my own parental relationship where I was a child and now the one where I am the parent, I can see certain things that I need to work on. And so really, I think parenting is one of those journeys that totally transforms you. And there is no end to it. Like I said, you parent all your life. And even when you're dead and buried, you'll still be parenting one way or another. You still remember things that your mother said, how she would have done things. So you parent, it's permanent. The parental relationship is permanent, and its impact lasts into eternity. Like I like to say that. So it then must be a journey that we must take very, very seriously and must constantly reflect on it, so that then if I was the victim of I was raised, or rather the recipient of a controlling parental style, and we all are, I think we also have, all of us have our moments of control. And I remember, not to be very personal and practical, when our firstborn came of age and we were suddenly discussing the issue of her leaving the house to become her own person, I realized the child was ready and I was not as a parent. I felt, no, there are still a few things we need to straighten out here. And I began to look for reasons not to let her go. And that's very natural. And now it is me telling me, Haya, the child wants to leave. Something has worked in my parenting. I hope she's not leaving, first of all, wanting to leave to escape my my presence. I hope that she's leaving because the time has come for her to, she feels confident enough to step out of the world and be fresh. So I guess reflecting throughout, and where you need help, seek help. Where you need to tone down and contain yourself. When you need to apologize and to, sort of change your ways. So I think like I say, the big thing is to reflect and to be very genuine about the things that you need to do with that parenting relationship.
Yes, and finally, thank you, Sophia. And yeah, because now we have to end it. So finally, Dr. Carol, I think you've got to relate with your mom. If your mom is still controlling, you've got to establish a new relationship where you get to say, okay, mom, I understand where you might be coming from, but this cannot continue. So it's like introducing your mom to the new you. Mom, I am grown up. You can't call me 5 times a day, checking how I'm doing. I appreciate the concern, but that's just a bit too much. Almost work with her to set boundaries and for her to understand. But you can say something into that, because sometimes we can hear a conversation like this and say, okay, mom, tutaonana kesho. I'm going to tell her off, she cannot do this for me. There's a way that you can slowly come to a place where there are now limits and boundaries, and you're able to, deal with the control.
Yeah, I think it's important to get to that point where for sure you need to have that conversation, but let it not be a reactive conversation. What happens with conversations such as the ones we are having is that we get so triggered, and then you're like, or you connect with some things and you're like, hey, I have to finish this thing quickly. And so when you go into that space, you're going with a lot of subjectivity, with still a lot of it's a very emotional space to let off the feelings of anxiety that you're feeling. And so it ends up being counterproductive, even more toxic than it should be. So I think the first thing is to really plan that conversation, especially if it's the first time you're having that conversation. Let it not be a reactive conversation. Plan it out. What am I really feeling? What effect has this thing had on me? Okay, fine. It's heavy and all that. Let me put aside the heaviness of the feelings first, but let me actually have a conversation. If possible, write it out. Okay, write out what it is you're going to say, or practice it with someone who is close to you and say, I really need to have this conversation with my mom. Can you just help me? How does it sound to you? Those are the conversations that actually impact and make a difference, because you go there with the emotions cut out. Okay, so that when you have the conversations, of course, when it comes to confrontation conversations, you really want to talk about your experience, not blaming or saying, you do this, you like doing this, you like controlling me. So don't put them on the defensive. Yeah. Have a conversation that is honoring by saying, this is how I feel when you do that. I feel smothered. I feel like I feel like I can't think straight when you start talking like that. And when that happens, then I'm feeling decisive, and I feel like I don't have confidence. Just talk about how it's affecting you. So, and then, if possible, then you can say, this is what now I'm asking you do next time. Okay. Because it's more of using the I statements, how it's affected you, and making sure that you don't do it in a reactive space.
So don't attack them and say, Mom, I finally figured out you're a controlling mother.
Yeah, figured out what your problem is.
That's
all these
not the way.
years. Yeah, you stepped on me. Yeah, when you go that way, it just makes it, you make it worse.
All right. Unfortunately, we have to end it there. But Alma, thank you for your contribution. You've been very active today. And Jambi, and you're asking a question, is controlling same as dictatorial? I think there's a slight difference to that. You can be a dictator where you just say, this is what I want to happen, do what I say. It may not be control. Sometimes it may be control. It may be just the way you handle authority. But here we're talking about the relationship you're having. So I think one could be used to support the other, but it's not the same thing in the way that we are talking here. And then someone else wanted to add something, but we're completely out of time. And we've talked about the fragile mom. We've talked about the controlling mom. As I said, we have done these surveys. We've really just summarized, and we're going to have a seminar on this. And if you'd like to join in, let us know. And I think as soon as we can, maybe by next week as we finish, we'll let you know when that seminar is happening. Thank you, all of you. I hope this was helpful. It's opened your eyes and mind, and that it's helping you be able to deal with some of the issues that you find yourself struggling with in young adulthood or adulthood in general. Thank you very much, everyone. I think I'll just say a quick prayer for us and we will call it a night. Lord, we're so grateful for the many things that we've learned today, but there's just a lot more to reflect. But we are all broken people in a sense. The relationship we have with our parents give us a lot of good things and help us grow and mature up, but also because we are all broken, it has its gaps. And so as we deal with these gaps, help us become the kind of a person you want us to be, so that we may relate well to others. Help us confront ourselves and be able to deal with the issues we have to deal with. But bless all of us, encourage us, and even those who feel guilty now, they have been controlling moms, help them deal with that so that it's not guilt. It's going to be, I've learned some things, I'm going to make some adjustments. Give us a good night and bless us wherever we might be all over the world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Carol. Thank you, Sophia. Dr. Mbuvi did not manage, but next week we are finalizing on this. We're going to talk about 3 other different kinds of moms. I'm looking forward to that, especially the next one, ideal mom or trophy mom. One celebrates you when you win and what that does. Still the boss mom, and one other mom that will never leave home, mom. So we are going to finalize next week. So you want to be here on time and tell your friends. So we'll see you next week. God bless you. Remember Dr. Carol on our website and on our social media. She has a book. She does therapy and she coaches parents, and you could always get that. And also remember, we do programs for fathers and mothers, intentional mom, intentional dad, and you're welcome to that. God bless you all and have a good night.